Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. What we have here is a failure to communicate, deploying effective inbound visibility. My name is Chris Coet. I'm from Descartes Systems Group. Following this web seminar, we will be distributing the slides within 24 hours, and there'll be a recording of the event as well. You may ask questions during this event through the Q&A function that can be found at the bottom of your screen. And with that, I'd like to get started. So what we're going to review today is about supply chain visibility and why it's more important than ever with the complexity of the business environment that we're in today. Also, the challenges and opportunities of supply chain visibility. What's the foundation of visibility? How great companies are getting it right, getting good visibility within their supply chain. And then steps that you can take in your business to get good end-to-end visibility. So why is supply chain visibility more important than ever? Well, there's a few reasons. One is the complexity of the business environment. 70 companies that were part of this research described that their supply chain was extremely complex. So with more complexity, you need better visibility into what's going on. 3/4 of the people said that there were multiple modes of transportation, up to 5 different modes of transportation. So with globalization, you might have a carrier that goes to ocean, then you have dray, rail carrier. So a lot of different segments to the transportation, making it even more complex. And 81% of companies use multiple KPIs, so you need good visibility to really track those KPIs with all your trading partners. And then most people outsource their transportation. So when outsourcing your transportation, you need better visibility and better tools to be able to collaborate with those partners. And then amazingly, only 6% said that they have full visibility to their entire supply chain. So not a lot of people have end-to-end supply chain visibility, it looks like. There's also another trend that's causing the need for good supply chain visibility. That is the data explosion. I mean, we see this in our personal lives, but it's happening in the enterprise as well. In the enterprise, it's about 40% year-over-year growth of data within our company. So certainly a lot of data, and having a lot of data certainly does not mean having good visibility, right? It actually can make it more challenging. So with this, using emails and spreadsheets, getting more and more data, it becomes much harder to get good visibility into our supply chain. Let's take a look at some of the challenges and opportunities of supply chain visibility. Well, over the last couple of years, speaking with our customers and prospects, it aligns, the challenges we're seeing aligns pretty much with what Gartner sees in their research, the barriers to achieving supply chain goals. And one of the big barriers is collaborating, right? You have more trading partners, more global, more complexity. So it's very hard to get the information and then collaborate with that information. And if you look at their first 2 challenges there, with the top blue bars, it's collaborating on forecasts, getting good forecasts, demand visibility, as well as synchronizing end-to-end processes. So, good collaboration is really important, whether it's with your logistics service providers and carriers, different customers and suppliers throughout your whole ecosystem. Then after that's the visibility part, right? Third on their list is lack of visibility across the supply chain. So you can get a lot of data, like we said, but it doesn't mean you have good visibility into your supply chain. So how do you get visibility from your supply chain across the entire value chain? And then, of course, if you could throw bodies at this, you can get some visibility, but it's going to be expensive, right? So doing it efficiently is also important. So what are some of the market drivers that are causing the need for supply chain visibility? Well, certainly the Amazon effect. People want things within a day or 2, sometimes even same day that we're seeing now. So these windows are shrinking, and there's more demand for more real-time information. Certainly the big boxes like Target and Walmart, on time and in full, they expect near perfection from suppliers. So this causes a lot of challenge as well. And if you don't meet those OTIFs, then you can get chargebacks, and it can be very costly. Then, of course, globalization, as we discussed, increasing that complexity. And then people are really focusing on working capital, reducing that working capital. So what else is driving the need for supply chain visibility? Well, we talked about the data explosion, right? How you're managing that data. If we look at some of the research, companies are pretty far behind on managing this data. Over 60% of information is still exchanged manually, whether that be paper, phone, or email. That's still a very manual process. And 80% of company information nowadays is typically from outside the four walls. That's from trading partners and different systems that are not within the company. So it gets more challenging to get that information. And most executives, about 59% of IT executives say, an Achilles heel for the company is B2B integration and getting that information. There's some real challenges in getting this information. So, what are some risks of having poor visibility? What can be the consequence of not having good visibility? Certainly, not having good visibility to the inbound supplies that you have, doing it manual. If you're doing it manually, you have more phone calls, more emails, more errors. It's more labor intensive. Doing manual track and trace, which things can slip through the cracks, and it's also much more expensive to do it that way. Production disruptions. So if you're not managing by exception and looking at the risks of inbound supply, you don't have that visibility, certainly can interrupt your production schedules. Then you have inventory buildup as well. Buyers don't have the visibility to what's coming in. They don't feel as comfortable, so they overbuy. If you have multiple tiers of supply, you have multiple buyers overbuying, which can create the bullwhip effect. That can certainly cause a buildup of inventory. And then detention, demurrage costs as well if you don't have good visibility into it when it comes in from ocean. Operationally, preparing your labor for a loading dock, that can be challenging if you don't know when it's going to arrive. Certainly, inventory buildup is one thing for carrying costs, but then you also have to store it and deal with the inventory. And you're just reacting instead of being more proactive in your supply chain. There's also a ton of issues on the outbound side, a ton of risk. We'll focus today on inbound, but certainly outbound has its challenges as well with a lack of visibility. So what are some of the costs of not having good visibility? Well, as we mentioned, detention, demurrage costs, that can be a risk. It can increase your ocean shipments. It can be part of maybe 10% of your ocean freight if you're not careful. So certainly increases your shipment costs, your freight costs. You can see an increase in expedites by about 20%. Not having good visibility in the beginning of the PO, not getting that PO confirmation up front. So there may be this gap between you and your supplier. And then at the last minute, you find out it's not ready in time, and then you have to expedite. That can be very costly. And then order management costs, which is part of this collaboration. Based on our research with multiple companies who have done their own audits or even external audits, as well as Gartner Group, estimated to be about $50 to $100 for a basic PO transaction. That's PO confirmation, ASN, ship notice, and the invoice. So when you start looking internationally and you add the freight forwarder and customs in multiple segments of the transportation, it can be 2 to 3 times higher. So it's very expensive to manually handle just the PO transaction. And then inventory positions can increase. We've seen buyers overbuy by 20%, and that can really add up. Then production planning, receiving, as we said, inefficiencies if you don't know when something is going to arrive. All these costs build up in your supply chain. We have all these market trends increasing the need for supply chain visibility. You have more complexity, more trading partners, and more data. So it makes it very difficult to achieve good supply chain visibility. So where are the opportunities, and how can you overcome these challenges? Well, McKinsey says that one of the biggest earnings growth in companies today lies in the digitization of the supply chain. So it's untapped in a lot of companies, and it's a big opportunity. So a lot of cost savings that can drop right to the bottom line. And as far as opportunity to get good information, it's necessary because 60% of supply chain information is needed within a day, but 40% is needed within an hour. So these windows, as we mentioned, are shrinking, and we really need to get good supply chain visibility. Harvard Business Review looked at Industry 4.0 and how digitization makes the supply chain more effective, agile, and customer-focused. And almost half of the points really touched upon visibility, right? Transparency and visibility across the value chain. So not just one functional area, but logistics, traceability of the shipment, sourcing, and even functionally across the value chain. Procurement 4.0, how to connect different supply lines and better collaboration with all the trading partners. Of course, prescriptive analytics. They also mention real-time information. So all of these things are just very important and related to visibility. So what are some of the cost savings that can be achieved with good visibility? Well, with order management, you can certainly reduce the cost of these order processing. 75% operating cost reduction we've seen, and it ties together with what Gartner's research shows. About 40 to 50% of this typically labor. So if you want a direct cost savings, maybe about a little less than half of the 75% can be directly tied to labor. But significant operating cost decrease if you're doing it manually now. Certainly a reduction in errors. You're not doing a lot of data entry and duplicate data entry, so that reduces your errors significantly, anywhere from 30 to 100% in some cases, if you're doing it manually. Certainly reducing your expediting freight because you're getting better visibility and you can hopefully be proactive. PO confirmation comes in and it doesn't meet your timeline, maybe you can get it from another supplier. So acting more proactively in your supply chain. And we've seen it go from 10% of freight down to 5% or less. So you can certainly reduce that quite a bit. And then reducing your detention demurrage costs, knowing when something arrives, getting visibility into last free day and those types of things, you can reduce that 10% ocean freight from detention and demurrage. And then certainly increasing your inventory turns, buyers having more confidence what is inbound, not needing to buy as much, and you get those better turnovers. So we discussed challenges, risks, some of the costs of not having good visibility, as well as some of the opportunities. So let's take a look at what it takes to gain visibility into your supply chain. Well, certainly the foundation of visibility is collaboration, right? Without getting that data, without collaborating, you're just not going to have the visibility that you need in your supply chain. So let's take a look at that. B2B integration, right? Exchanging of information, documents between applications, certainly getting this information, but going to the next level and collaborating, putting workflows, processes, and then the people into the mix. So that's really important foundation of the visibility part. So having these workflows, so you're getting the POs out to your suppliers, they're getting the confirmations back in an automated way instead of emails where there can be errors and latency. And then be able to perform mass communication, so be able to communicate to your whole community. It's building out a whole community, and be able to communicate with them, whether it's one-on-one or through the whole community if you need to communicate something to the community regarding your supply chain. So be able to collaborate multiple levels in a granular fashion or in a macro fashion. And being able to align on performance issues. So putting KPIs in place that you can align on with your trading partners, but then holding each other accountable. If a supplier's not meeting their ETA that they confirmed on, well, you're going to see that in reports. You're also going to see when you're managing by exception that they're always late. And they're going to have visibility into that as well, so they're going to know if they're not performing well. So it really makes your trading partners more accountable. And then empowering business partners to standardize on their own processes, but giving them some flexibility so if they need to upload an XLS in their own format, they can do that, having configurable workflows. And that information will be then translated into this normalized data that can then go in and out of your ERP. So for your company, it looks like everyone's on EDI, even though they may be doing it in a lot of different formats and ways. So having some of that flexibility. And so with that integration and collaboration, then you can start to get to good visibility. What are some of the key capabilities necessary to achieve successful collaboration? Well, first, as we mentioned, the integration, getting the data, right? Maybe it's a business network. You certainly want to look across the value chain. being able to get logistics information, commercial with PO information, customs, product, and all the suppliers and customers as well. So a myriad of different message types that you need to be able to gather. And you need to be able to get this in different ways because your supplier in Asia might not do EDI, right? They might need to use a web portal or upload an XLS. So you need to have that flexibility. Then on top of that data, being able to put configurable workflows, so then you can have the automation. So that might be the PO process from your ERP to your suppliers with confirmations, ship notices. And then once they do the commercial invoice, if it needs to be imported, it can trigger something to tell the freight forwarder, okay, you need to start the customs entry. And then you apply business rules to that along the way to make sure everything's on track. So that becomes the collaboration part. These business rules can alert you if your freight forwarder did not file customs entry on time or if they don't have all the documents. And then you're managing by exception. And then configured for each business user, you can log in and see a dashboard to really help manage this efficiently. And that's when you get more orchestration and visibility across your supply chain and entire value chain. And that's really the goal. So if getting them the information is the first step, how do you do this successfully? Well, again, it needs to be able to get data from all different types of trading partners. If you're doing one-off EDI and separate supplier portal, you got to be careful because it's going to have a lot of siloed information. So you want to have a system that can aggregate this information or pull from a business network that already has all of these connections or most of them. So you're getting information on all the carriers, all the shipment modes, ocean, air, rail, the carriers. And then, of course, your trading partners such as suppliers and customers. Because the outbound, again, we're not going to discuss it much today, but it's certainly important given visibility to your customers. And then all the intermediaries, your freight forwarders, brokers. And then more and more regulation, you really need to tie into the governments, customs agencies, and getting a grasp on all of these regulations. So once you have the data, what do you do with it? How do you manage it? Well, you want to put it into some type of, preferably a cloud collaboration hub, something that can bring all this information together into your community. But you have to be able to have roles because you don't want everyone to see all of the information. So first is getting it, whether it's web portal, EDI, API, with that integration hub, building out that community with the types of roles you need, right? Supplier, manufacturers, brokers, all the way through the process, or maybe it might be another process. Being able to tie into not only your ERP, but maybe you have a WMS system or other systems that you have that you want to get information from. Then putting those workflows and business rules in place, but configurable for your business. Each business is pretty unique, so there's a lot of nuances. So you got to have a lot of flexibility there for not only your business rules, but how you're working with your trading partners. And by doing so, you have higher adoption with those trading partners. And once you have that foundation, you put in the business rules to get those alerts, and then you're truly collaborating with what you see on top there, the blue, all the carriers and brokers and suppliers, customers, and even external systems, since 80% of the data today is usually outside of your four walls. So what does visibility look like relative to a PO and import lifecycle? So we'll show a use case here. For instance, if you're in the US and you import from some manufacturers in Asia, well, first you might want to collaborate with some forecasts. You want to make sure you're aligned on that. Instead of just emailing a spreadsheet, you can do this through the portal, make sure they received it. They can confirm that they can commit to that forecast. And if you look, the lines in red are digital integration, and black would be web portal or more of a manual process. And that just depends on the capabilities of your trading partners. If you create a PO in your ERP, that should be sent automatically to suppliers so they can then confirm either from their mobile phone or from a portal. But getting that confirmation up front is important so you have less downstream risk, right? Are they committing to it? Can they meet this date? Can they supply all the product that I'm asking for? And maybe it's a blanket PO, but getting a PO confirmation is important. And then if it's manufactured, in Asia, there might be multiple manufacturing milestones that you want to get visibility into. But certainly you want to know when it's ship ready. Supplier then creates the ship notice and then a commercial invoice. And it's an important milestone because then it's going to trigger for the freight forwarder to go into that portal, grab these documents, and begin the customs entry. So now it's taking a lot of lead time out of this because things are happening in near real time. And information is all in one area. So now the broker can start the customs entry, either a PO or bill of lading to a shipment, and now you're tracking along the way. And depending on your KPIs and thresholds you set, we'll track the shipments to the PO and when it's expected to arrive. And something falls outside of that threshold, freight forwarder does not submit the customs entry information in ISF in a timely fashion. You'll be notified, everyone's notified, so you can react to it instead of reacting later on when it's too late. And then getting all those shipment statuses from the carrier to ocean or air, and then back once it's maybe back in the States. Knowing where it is, when it lands, last free day, having that information so you can avoid those detention and demurrage costs. So this helps put everything into one central location that everyone can help collaborate on. But it's role-based, so only those who need to see certain information can see it, and only take action when they need to take action. But that's when you start to gain visibility into the supply chain. So what does it look like, big picture, throughout the value chain? How it fits into our platform as well. So having a business network is the foundation. Again, getting that information is important. But then you need to be able to apply, depending on your business especially, different solutions across the value chain. So import and export compliance, if you're doing a lot of import. Routing and telematics, if you have your own fleet, so be able to get that information from your fleet. TMS and WMS, so certainly if you're outsourcing and want to do freight reconciliation or rate calculations, and then WMS for more efficiency. And being able to share that information across the value chain. So order management would be part of the PO process we just saw. Global trade content, be able to see what your competitors are importing and what's going on in the industry. And then e-commerce logistics on the outbound as well. So breaking down the silos and getting information across all these functional areas is very important. So once you have this type of platform and ecosystem plugged in, how does it help you manage your business? You have near real-time visibility into the movement of goods, which is important. And in certain cases, some businesses might not be as important as others, but you can get almost real-time visibility into when something is going to arrive. So if you have a 15-minute window of something arriving at a dock, you can certainly plan your dock labor better. You can do better production scheduling and planning. You can look to see what's at risk. Shipments in red, as you see here, would be those that are potentially late. And it looks at things such as weather and traffic, not just if it's already late, but potentially could be late. So being a little more predictive with the information is very important. Once you have collaboration, you have these workflows and business rules in place, that's when you start to achieve supply chain visibility. But what's the best way to deploy the visibility, right? One thing to have the information, but how do business users use this? Well, rolling this into a dashboard that are configured for each different business user is very important, obviously. If the business user logs in, there's going to be a couple of KPIs they need to see. They want to see what the late deliveries are so they can do something about it before it's too late. And having something that's more interactive so you can kind of drill down into the issue. So by clicking on the late deliveries, it'll bring up the POs that are late. Some might not be important, so you can filter through what's important and what's not, setting the filters, and then drill down into here's why it's late. And then you can either decide maybe we have to expedite, get another supplier. You can start to make better decisions by having that visibility, but giving that visibility to all the different business users and what's important to them. So what kind of results can you expect? Well, we deployed something similar for Kodak. And at first they took the approach of EDI, which is certainly good for some suppliers and trading partners. But what happens is most suppliers, especially in Asia and other parts of the world, don't have EDI. And it takes a long time. It costs more to maintain. So it just was not successful for them. So they decided to deploy a cloud-based solution. We call it Easy Collaboration. And it helps centralize the supply chain data, as we had discussed. It helps with the collaboration, feeding it right back in their SAP system. So to them, it looks like everybody's on EDI, even though there's a lot of different manual ways that suppliers are interacting with them. But the suppliers are happy because they're not forced to in a certain format or into a specific way of doing things. And then Kodak's happy because they're standardizing on a process and automating everything. And they achieved over $1 million just in labor savings. A lot of that was from 120,000 invoices being automated annually. And then 25,000 fewer blocked invoices, a lot less errors, saved them a lot of manpower. And it increased their PO confirmation, as we discussed, which avoids downstream issues later on. They forced the suppliers to have PO confirmations on all POs. And so they saw a significant difference in their supply chain. So what are some of the benefits? Kind of just encapsulating the benefits we've seen. Well, by having collaboration and automation, you get that visibility. But it really helps reduce labor costs pretty significantly. When you have errors, it's costly to fix those. A lot of labor around, a lot of labor managing the PO process, as we discussed, and track and trace. You only have a lot more errors if you're doing this manually. And then inventory costs, as we talked about, and the bullwhip effect. But then also hopefully avoiding out-of-stock issues, which is pretty big on the outbound. And then improving your performance on the delivery side and reducing that working capital. That's more and more important for companies nowadays. So let's take a look at how companies are getting visibility right, how some of the great companies are doing it right. Well, the bold companies are leading the digitization effort across functional areas as we discussed. And based on some of the research, which we won't get too deep into right now, they are financially outperforming the laggards. So there is correlation between collaboration, digitization of the supply chain, and really financially outperforming your competitors. So it is a competitive advantage. But they are, again, they're not taking these one-off approaches, one EDI integration with your largest supplier and these siloed approaches. It's more aligned across functionally between operations, IT, sales, marketing, and finance. And that's very important. Certainly focused on rapidly advancing this. If you take too long with the explosion of data and the complexity of business nowadays, companies are going to fall behind. It's just too important in a supply chain to not have this and not get good visibility. And it's overlooked in a lot of companies, so hopefully it can get some attention and some of this information could be helpful with your case. Certainly helping these companies become more agile. The Hackett Group termed Agile Enterprise. And what that is information-driven, right? Using information and visibility to make better decisions. A digital value network, so not just those one-off EDIs with the supplier or trading partner, but a many-to-many network that you can really share information across your ecosystem and functionally. Customer-centric, on the outbound side, really giving your customer more visibility. And then operational responsiveness. So the better visibility you have, you're going to be more proactive instead of just reactive to things. And you can come up with better decisions and avoid risks. So these are some of the things the better companies who are financially outperforming the laggards are doing. But what are some of the steps that you can take to gain better visibility into your supply chain? Well, first thing, like we mentioned, really the foundation of visibility is collaboration. So you've got to increase your collaboration efforts, avoid email and spreadsheets. There's so many, even large companies out there still using a lot of email and spreadsheets. And you can get away with it, but it really is going to cause issues in the future as we have more data and more complexity. We're getting away from that. Stop adding to the problem with just one-off integrations, as I mentioned. You do an in-house EDI, you have a couple of suppliers on EDI. That just solves one problem. You want to look at something a little bit higher level and how it's going to help you across your supply chain. A study done by University of Tennessee showed that 94 companies that were surveyed saw a significant improvement in their connectivity capabilities when they used a managed service. So outsource what's not core to you. If there's a managed service that's going to help you get the information, they have a business network, or they're going to help you onboard your trading partners, that can certainly be a benefit, and you can focus your resources more to what's core to your company. Certainly you want to standardize your process, right? Be more efficient. You want some standardization. But at the same time, you're going to decentralize some of that, and you want to have some flexibility to increase your adoption rate with your trading partners. If you try to force everybody into one format and one way of doing things, it's not going to go so well. You want to develop a strategy to deploy collaboration, again, across the value chain, not just a segment of the business. You want to be able to share information between IT and marketing and operations. So it needs to be a many-to-many and not a segmented approach. Certainly focusing on the strategy, yeah, it's common sense, but looking at what's most important to your company, what are the important KPIs, and starting with that, but making sure that, again, it's not a one-off solution, that it's going to be able to expand into the outbound side. It's going to be able to pull in information from other functional areas and other trading partners that you might not initially onboard. So those are some important things to look at. So the three main points I really want to make sure are clear. Data does not mean good visibility. Actually, too much data can mean poor visibility because it's just impossible to go through it all and really get an accurate assessment of what's going on in your supply chain. Putting into context, it's important to know where something is with tracking, but really you want to know where it should be, not just where it is, right? Where it should be and where it's going to be. So predictive analytics, looking at the business rules and KPIs of this is expected to arrive on August 15th, but the PO confirmation said we were going to receive it on another date. So being able to predict things in a better fashion is really good visibility. So it's not just about getting the data. And then secondly, visibility is really crucial to the future success of most companies. I think Cisco chairman John Chambers had said a couple of years ago, 1/3 of the companies will probably be out of business in 10 years because they're just not going to adapt to digitization. So it's really important with this data explosion and the complexity of business to start automating this and getting away from spreadsheets and emails. And then thirdly, as we touched upon, collaboration is really the foundation of visibility. Not just knowing a piece of information, it's being able to put it into context and be able to collaborate with all of your trading partners across the supply chain. So those are the three main points I'd like to get across. And just quickly, how does Descartes help its clients? Well, globally we help over 2 million trading partners connect in over 160 countries and more than 50 industry verticals. 5 billion messages processed every year and tens of millions of physical security filings are processed every year. So a lot of data flowing through our solutions and business network. So how do we achieve this for our customers? Well, it's having that cloud-based collaboration hub. We call it Easy Collaboration. Being able to get information in any type of method or format, translating that into a standardized process in and out of our customers' systems. And then being able to create these communities and having flexibility to change configurations and workflows along the way as the business changes. And having that flexibility for the trading partners so they're not pushed into one specific way of doing things. So by doing that all on top of our business network, we really provide true collaboration and visibility, we believe, to our customers. So how do we do it differently? Well, we have flexible business rules, and this is not just about Descartes, but things you want to look for. You want to have flexible business rules and workflows because your business is always changing, right? And you're going to need that flexibility with all the different trading partners around the world because they have nuances to their business as well. Preferably a cloud-based solution in most cases because it's going to be a faster ROI and you don't have to do maintenance. Something that has full service trading partner onboarding. I mean, this is a big resource constraint for some companies. So if you outsource that, you don't have to manage the onboarding or the maintenance, ongoing maintenance of that. So that relieves a lot of resources in your company. Something that you leverage a business network, a many-to-many business network that is getting information from all these different types of companies, whether it's logistics or the commercial messages or from government agencies, and make sure that it's large enough really to get your suppliers, customers, and the information you need to collaborate on. And then, of course, being able to add different solutions across the value chain, whether it's routing and telematics, if it's TMS, or different solutions that are going to help your company in the future better manage the supply chain. And of course, if you're a global company, you want 24/7 support around the world. You know, these are some of the things you want to look for. I mean, we certainly help our customers provide a solution. And what happens to those companies that do not deploy end-to-end visibility across the supply chain in the future? Well, as Jack Welch once said, if the rate of change on the outside of a company exceeds the rate of change on the inside, the end is near. So it is really important to get good supply chain visibility. With that, I'd like to take some questions. Okay, first one. There's some suppliers that take a lot of our IT bandwidth to connect their systems. You know, what are some options? So as we discussed, using a business network, as well as a managed service, right? A business network might have some of the suppliers or some of the trading partners on there already, but it might not have all of them. So a managed service can certainly help take that resource burden off of your to-do list, managing the integration and adoption of the suppliers, if that's the case. You know, being able to monitor and support them proactively. And then, of course, putting it into a collaborative type of solution that is going to be able to apply business rules and workflows to help automate that. Any other questions? We have another one. There's been a lot of industry discussion about visibility. You know, talk about that a little bit more regarding EDI and B2B integration. So, well, as we discussed, just getting the data is not good visibility necessarily. It just means you have more information to go through. But certainly you need to get the data. And when you do, what do you do with it? Well, collaboration, as we discussed, putting it into workflows, and then tying those KPIs and business rules to that data. And so relative to B2B integration, it's certainly part of the visibility and collaboration of how you're getting this and orchestrating across your supply chain with all of these trading partners. So really, again, and I mentioned this before, it's not just knowing where something is, right? It's putting it into context. So where's the shipment? Great, I know where it is. Well, where is it supposed to be, and where are you predicting it's going to land, and then move to rail, and then be at your dock? So those are all the different segments in predictive analytics that we need to look at. Another question. So my trading partners have some complex business rules, and some are standard. What type of business rules do you see and manage? So certainly it's just a myriad, but some of the common ones are obviously tying that PO to the PO confirmation, making sure that you're getting a PO confirmation. I think some businesses overlook that a little bit, but if you overlook that, it can cause issues downstream. So really getting a commitment and aligning on what the expectations are of what you're going to get, when you're going to receive it, and putting that type of business rule in gives both parties that visibility and accountability. You know, there's ETA of shipment, so once you get the PO and PO confirmation is shipped, you want to be able to tie that shipment to PO, but also tie it to the ETA and know ahead of time if there's something at risk so you can do something a little more proactive. Certainly you have your basic data validation and correction, you know, We see this a lot with companies all over the world. Sometimes you need to do unit conversions, so being able to convert units and being able to cross-reference SKU information. Sometimes suppliers use different SKU, so you need to be able to do that kind of data correction and validation. Certainly being able to monitor those KPIs in real time so you can set these alerts, but it needs to be very configurable because you want to be able to change these thresholds and business rules as you're going through your business and your business is evolving. So has the freight forwarder submitted the customs entry documents in time, right? Maybe you're finding that you're having issues with customs, so you need to change that KPI a bit, and being able to change that and put in some different business rules so you know if customs is being filed on time and if it's going to have an issue. Certainly, being able to collaborate with all the documents, so tying all those documents into this whole life cycle is important. So you're not emailing documents, putting them into folders. That can be a real nightmare, especially as your business grows. So tying in all the documents as well. Another question, what if your customs information, logistics, and commercial information is in separate systems? So that's one of the things we talked about. A lot of companies have siloed information, and what happens is all these functional areas have their information, have some visibility, but it's not really shared well across functionally and across the supply chain, and that can cause a lot of problems. So certainly being able to have more of a collaborative type of solution that can share that information, but it needs to be role-based. Business user doesn't need to see all the information, nor do you want a trading partner to see all the information. So something that's role-based that can be configured and modified as the business changes. That way you can share this information across different systems and functional areas. So with that, I thank you very much. I hope this was helpful. Again, this information, the slides, and a recording will be sent out within about 24 hours. Thank you very much, and have a great day.